I've hated Elon Musk, maybe a bit of a strong word, pretty disliked. Of course, he's been the richest man on the planet.
He was kind of very hardworking, like a suppressed kid.
For a lot of people, 18, 19-year-old, they see him as like a hero. It's always been like as an investor or trying to be CEO and being pretty bad at it. There's a lot of stories where people will say the less Elon is actually involved, the better it is going.
He is a very powerful person. Is he really using his powers?
He went very right wing, very fast. He's a dumbass. Excuse my language.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our podcast with Gwildor again. Today we have a very interesting topic, Elon Musk, and specifically Gwildor's opinion or different view towards Elon Musk. Many times I have found him, he is not a big fan of Elon Musk. So I was quite curious to know, what is his opinion? Why he say this? Why he came to this conclusion even that he does not like him? I wouldn't say, maybe there would be a better English word or sentence to explain this, but I hope my audience will understand my question. And Gwildor, you at least.
Yes, thank you, Aapt. It's good to be back. Well, a lot of things changed in the last few months. I think we should go over that later, near the end, because a lot of things has shifted. So I think a lot more people now hate Elon Musk than a few months before, a few months ago.
Mhm.
I've hated Elon Musk. Hate is maybe a bit of a strong word, but yeah, pretty disliked him for a long time. But not originally. I will go over that in as well. Yeah, I used to like him a long time ago. I thought it might be good or useful to go over his life chronologically a little
Mhm.
bit, and then I
Mhm.
can add some remarks on my own as well. Because there's a few things that are useful to keep in mind that not everyone knows about him. Of course, he's
Mhm.
been the richest man on the planet already for quite some time. He's been very well known already, not just before he worked together with Trump, but also already years ago. He was already pretty well known by all the things that he was doing. But yeah, it's important to remember his background because he was born in South Africa and he came as
Mhm.
a migrant through Canada and then to the United States. And he was actually born from a very rich family. There's actually a lot of background on his father and also grandfather and his mother as well. In short, his family was in real estate. They were in mining. They had an emerald mine or like a part, like how you call this? Like they had stakes in
Main
an
mistakes or
exactly,
yeah.
yeah, in an emerald mine in Zambia. His mother was a well-known model, so he was growing up in a very rich family. They had multiple villas, mansions, they had yachts, all those kind of things. Went
That's
to
very interesting. I wasn't aware.
Yeah,
Seriously.
it
It's
is, right?
interesting to know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, not a lot of people know this. And his
Mhm.
actually he has other family members that are pretty well known as well. I always said his father, grandfather, they were active in politics as well, in South Africa. But yeah, he went to the Canada to study there at 18, and then later he went to the United States, which is already interesting in itself. So he was a migrant. He was a knowledge migrant or an economic migrant, you could say, to study abroad in a maybe a better university than what was possible in South Africa. So that's
Mhm.
already like a very interesting tidbit to know about him.
Mhm.
And so he was born in 71, so he's 53 years old now. And basically, where he started some serious things in around 95, 96, so around like age 25 roughly, because he started some businesses with his brother and also some friends from university.
Mhm.
And I think like this is the part which I like actually most about him, where I actually have like a positive opinion about him, because he funded a few companies that are doing relatively well. They were like innovating. They were all in tech, of course. There's like anecdotal stories where he was working a lot, where he was like one of the three founders and he was doing like a lot of the tech work. Like, for example, they were like doing banking innovation. And so because of that, during the day, the site or the software was being used. So he would actually work at night because then he would be able to push the updates that he wanted to while not impacting the users. So basically, like in these years, like 95 until around 99, he was doing a lot of work himself. He was like co-founding different companies. and he was earning quite a bit of money of that as well because they eventually sold the company. He got a lot of, I think about 20 million or 25 million dollars from
Hmm.
investors when selling these companies. So by this time, like around age 30, something like that, he was already like pretty self-made. Well, not really self-made because he came from a rich family. Like how did he start his companies? Of course, he had money from his family to invest, but at least for a few years, he was actually on the ground working for himself, and he made like a decent share of money from these like semi or successful companies this way. So I think this is more like the classical, what you say, like
First of all, I mean, I
entrepreneur.
think, I mean, let me also share some opinion. I mean,
Hmm.
I haven't gone into too much depth about his history, but I mean, today's word is YouTube. I mean, you get a lot of, I mean, videos or suggestions from there and a lot of information. So, I mean, till now, I had what kind of information I had for the Elon Musk, that he has a very academic background and he was kind of very hardworking. His childhood was like, I mean, he was not brave or something. I mean, he was bit like suppressed kid, something little bit. This is something what I have, I mean, have the picture. So what I'm trying to talk, I mean, lot of people get lot of different understanding or different picture of a person because of this YouTube or this social media culture. All the information which we get, I mean, anyway, I mean, whether it is in a reading mode or in a video mode, audio mode, I mean, where is the authentication? I mean, whether this information is right or not.
Yeah, well, that's the point, right? You can pick out like multiple things from his life or like just his Wikipedia
Yeah,
page, and you can try to
yeah,
form like an image about him.
yeah.
And there's of course also the image that he himself tries to push, like pays people to put out an image, like he goes to talks to journalists, etc. And of course he has like a very big following, so there's also a lot of people are like 18, 90-year old and that
Hmm.
want to become like him. They see him as like a hero or an example. So they will also voluntarily defend him on the internet or try to make interesting videos about him. And they push him in a positive light.
There's a lot of problem with this. I mean, that how people are influenced with him, because I mean, knowing certain facts about his life, which depicted a very great image. For some people, it's not, but for them at least, I mean, it worked. That kind of image. That's why they are kind of blind supporter of him.
Hmm.
Not blind supporter, but I mean, half blind, I would say.
Yes, definitely. And that's why I wanted to start with his background and like the first few years because I think that paints like a relatively well image, I would say, of him. Like very like
Yeah.
okay, he has a big rich background, sure, but at least he was also funding his own companies together with also other people, also sure, but he was actually like earning money by innovating within the tech scene.
Let me just establish this. He has a very rich background.
Hmm.
Initially, he came as a knowledge background. He did innovation, so which is pretty good. Okay, I mean, regardless, I mean, you had the good background. Maybe starting money you have already have,
Hmm.
maybe, and he did lot of innovations and created lot of worth
Exactly.
at this point.
Yeah.
So okay, I mean, the image, I mean, if you see till now, so it's basically, yeah, it's good thing. I mean, now we are moving forward, then we will turn the image,
Yes, exactly.
turn or see,
A
see, I
little
mean,
bit.
how it is
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah. Because I think it was in 1999, one of the companies that was actually X.com, that was where he had the domain name for originally. They merged with another company. I forgot the name, what was the original name, but they would become PayPal. They merged to become PayPal.
Hmm.
And Elon Musk was originally appointed the CEO, but things didn't go that well. And while Elon Musk was on honeymoon, he actually got kicked out of the CEO role, and he got
Hmm.
replaced by Peter Thiel, which was an important
I
name
know
to
Peter
know.
Thiel. Yeah, 0 to 1 author of
Exactly,
that
yeah.
book. I guess.
He's a big friend of Elon Musk, always has been since these PayPal days. Although they also had like a lot of fights together, but that's a separate story. But they are pretty similar, but with one big exception is that Elon is a bit more like the chaotic and like the very open into the news. His name is always out there, you know. He's always making a name, always working on his image. While Peter Thiel is more like the guy in the background. So he's more stable, more focused, and less concerned with putting his name out there, etc. Elon Musk got replaced by Peter Thiel, which is of course one of the fights that they would have in their life. Elon Musk got bought out basically. He got a lot of money from this adventure, but that's already like a sign where he was not really like funding companies where he was doing tech work himself, but he was doing like he was basically in this like CEO adventure. So he was trying in these years to become CEO of a lot of things, and he would sometimes be like, how I would say this is that he was falling upwards. So he was not successful as a CEO, but he got compensated for it anyway because he got bought out to try to get rid
Mm-hmm.
of him. And then he would utilize his money to then go to a different company, for example, Tesla, that he did not found. He tries to claim that he always said he found it, but that's not true. It already existed for about a year. But he was one of the initial investors. And then he would buy a CEO spot. And then basically he had like a lot of companies in these years that he built. But it was basically post 2000. It's always been like as an investor and not anymore as like an employee, like a CTO or like a programmer developer role, but always like an investor or trying to be CEO and being pretty bad at it, honestly. That's my opinion. Like if you ask me my opinion of his life until 2010, I would say like okay, he can fund like small companies and make them successful. Maybe, sure,
Mm-hmm.
definitely in the 90s. But later he was mostly just a successful investor and a pretty mediocre CEO. Basically, he has constantly been falling upwards until the position that he became in until like 2010, 2015.
Okay, interesting. So the second part of, I mean, the picture which we were trying to paint, not trying to paint, but which we have observed, and we tried to paint with that observation. Now it is more like not really founding something and deeply going on any adventure. It's more of all the money, decent money which you invested in a right place, then trying to become CEO, not like a developer or maybe some other position in order to make it happen. So
Hmm.
basically, like direct efforts involved.
Exactly. And there are a lot of stories from employees who tell, like, for example, if you look at X, formerly Twitter, but also SpaceX and Tesla, I think those are like the big three things. He has like a lot of other companies, but I think those are the main important ones. There's a lot of stories where people will say like the less Elon is actually involved in the day-to-day operations, the better it is
Hmm.
going because then the actual experts that are working like in like the middle management and lower, they are actually involved. Then things go pretty well. Like for example, like SpaceX, he's been pretty hands off of SpaceX actually, but on Tesla he's been very involved. And I would definitely argue that SpaceX, I actually like SpaceX on some levels, but he was definitely less involved with SpaceX than he was with Tesla. He has had a lot of success with his investments, obviously.
Hmm.
You don't become the richest man in the world by not doing that. But he's a great investor and he's not a great CEO. He's a pretty bad CEO. That's why he got kicked out at PayPal. That's why people within Tesla and SpaceX, they try to work around him. Yeah, that's basically his life during this decade until like 2010, something like that, 2015.
I think, I mean, there would be another podcast or one clip I will try to make what you said, and also what he tries to depict why he left the paper. So, what kind of picture he was trying with his media agency,
Hmm.
and what is this view, so we can have a contrast.
There's actually one famous story. I don't remember exactly. It was around PayPal. I think maybe it was a few years later that a lot of people like to tell, but it's actually not that well-known story. Is that Elon Musk bought a McLaren F1, very expensive car. I think it goes around like $1 million at the time. And he actually invited Peter Thiel for a ride. Elon Musk tried to impress Elon Thiel, and Elon Thiel didn't really care about cars. Elon Musk cared a lot about image and cars, so he tried to show his fancy car and impress Peter Thiel. And then Elon Musk went speeding to like, race a bit on the highway with the fast car. And they crashed and they almost both died. They both got out scot-free by luck, by like a miracle, but they
Mhm.
almost died. It was a pretty nasty crash. The car was, of course, completely totaled, so we're completely
Mhm.
worthless now. And I think
Mhm.
it says a lot about like the way that Elon Musk lives his life, basically, and tries to put like an image for it
Yeah, I
towards
mean,
other
if you have that much money basically to for PR agency, hire PR agency, then this kind of things can be done easily. Basically, we are also trying to establish this fact that he is quite careful for their PR, I would say,
people.
how public see him on social media or other medias. So he's maybe, I mean, when he was in his 30s, since then he is already paying for it.
Exactly, yeah.
People, for them it is quite difficult, those who are only like 20 years, because I mean they are not getting those stories out there. What was he within 30s? It's basically getting the half pictures for a lot of generation.
hmm Yeah, and that's of course subjective, of course, right? Like I'm a little bit older now than I was when I still liked him a bit. So maybe I also learned like, okay, someone who is doing these things, who is painting his image like this, also with other things, like for example, like trying really hard to be nerdy, but like a cool nerdy, like doing a lot of like fantasy and science fiction quotes. He also
Mhm.
always tries to position himself as someone who plays a lot of video games, but then it turns out he was paying someone in the Philippines or somewhere like that to run the account for him. So that's all subjective. Maybe you like that. Maybe you think like, oh, he's like
I
a.
mean that gives me one feeling, at least, since he is a very powerful person, is he really, I mean, using his powers, so I mean, to basically whatever he wants to convince all other people, is he using? And if he is using and still I'm saying, I mean, he is great, okay, he did this and that, inspiring figure, blah, blah, blah. I think, I mean, I need to rethink.
Well, like look at a company like Tesla or SpaceX. Like I said, I like SpaceX. There's discussions you can have about the strategic usefulness of trying to go to Mars and instead of trying to solve problems here on Earth, etc. But that's a separate discussion, I think. At least he has a vision, whether you agree with it or not, that
Mhm.
it's useful to go this route. So in that part, he is trying to influence the world in what he feels is a better way. But I think like other things, yeah, it's he's just very like opportunistic or very indeed only caring about his own image, about staying rich. He could spend, I think, more money, more power that he has on like funding, like I don't know, anti-climate change. Because he did say, and I do believe in him that he is very worried about climate change. He's also worried about AI. He does not like AI, although he is utilizing it a lot now and he invested in it as well. But he could spend more money, more power on new companies or initiatives, maybe like some public like or non-governmental organizations that combat climate change. Basically, for
Yeah.
example, like what Bill Gates, who I also dislike on some levels, but Bill Gates has been putting a lot more money towards like foundational work, becoming more like the philanthropist instead of staying this very rich entrepreneur.
I mean, I'm also getting one feeling, I mean, while I'm hearing this from you. I think, I mean, he's following just his own dreams, basically, by having that money, and there's no problem. Anyone can follow his own dreams. But when you have this much money, a lot of people are influenced with you in the society. I mean, something is wrong happening, I think. It's really wrong happening.
Yeah, definitely.
And we are kind of in the inertia of not recognizing him. Maybe right now US is doing quite a lot of things, I mean, which basically does not make happy to the other parts of the world. So maybe people will start having this negative image on Elon already, I think.
hmm
Maybe some people, some fraction of people. Apart from that, I mean, we have really, I mean, opened up quite a lot of things. I mean, for me at least, this is a bit of discourse, I would say.
Yeah, so I like these are the things that for me started to change my opinion on him around like 2012, 2013. So basically, we're now in like the 2010 to 2020 era where he was gaining more money, he was also gaining more popularity, but also more people started to catch up on his nonsense, basically. And that's also in this era where I changed my opinion about him and also changed my opinion about Tesla. I used to like Tesla earlier as well. Some other things that he did in this era is he did try like a lot of new ideas. I think that's where you see that he is always falling upwards or failing upwards, how you call. That he's a dumbass. Excuse my language, but he funded some companies by himself and tried to make them work, and I think two are interesting there. And the one is like a Hyperloop. He actually did not fund companies in there, but he put out the paper how it should work. And this thing has been like a very big failure. Like it's been tried by like, I don't know, like 20 companies around the world. There's a few in the Netherlands as well. And it's been so much debunked already by a lot of other people. We will not go into that. But basically, it just does not work on like a physics level. And you are just better off with just investing in trains or just any mode of transportation that's already been proven to work for the past 100 years and
Mhm.
not try like these wild new ideas that he put forth. And there's like similar things that he tried, like the Boring Company to try to like revolutionize ground boring, so subterranean construction. Also, of course, to tie in with some sort of hyperloop solution. And they actually tried this in Las Vegas, and
Mhm.
he made very big promises. All these kinds of wild promises about like how efficient the transportation will be. And what they delivered in the end was just a dedicated tunnel for Teslas to drive in a loop. It's just a taxi fleet, and it's still manually driven by personnel. So you still need employees. It's not even like fully automated. And it's in the end, it's just way less efficient than installing a subway or a metro, just any proven mode of transportation that we know already works and is way cheaper. Or not necessarily cheaper,
Interesting.
but it is way more efficient.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. I'm from India. I lived till my 30s, I would say, in India. So you are here in the West. I mean, in the center part of the West, I would say. I mean, or the starting part of the West. I
Hmm.
mean, when I'm saying from East. And this guy, Elon Musk, lives here in the complete West. Okay. People, those who are near to West, I think maybe they will get more information earlier than the complete East.
Sure.
And let me just say you, I mean, I have first time heard his name like when I was in 30s or somewhere
It's like
via Twitter or
pretty
something.
late.
Pretty late.
Yeah.
So 30s means 6, 7, 8 years before, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
And in West, I mean, people know him almost like 20 to 30 years. 20 years at least, not 7, 8. A lot of people, not
Like
20, but 15 to 20,
10 to 15, I would say.
10 to 15,
Yeah.
relatively more.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think, I mean, what we have discussed here, I mean, at least, I mean, I don't think, I mean, in Indian market, this content is really available. This is something unique. It's just my only thought. I may be wrong as well. I see, I mean, what all the technologies, what he is making, are they for general purpose? Are they living the standard of life for common people, average people? I
No,
think, I mean, he's just dealing in the rich and rich. I mean, basically, all his products and services, I don't know, maybe some others, PayPal, maybe, as an innovation, but all the others, they are for rich people. Or
exactly.
maybe, I mean,
Yeah.
people, those who are not middle class, or, I mean, for them, I mean, there is nothing, I mean, what he is innovating. So basically, I mean, if you go for voting, electorate, which is whole worldwide,
Hmm.
I don't know the exact percentage, but 90% of people are, I think, poor or, I mean, average, or I don't know, maybe in the middle. For them, he is not making anything.
And so then this is interesting,
And
right?
but okay, wait. He's only, I mean, basically serving people like 5 to 10%. I'm just being too much I mean, giving his to, I
Very
mean, too much
generous.
part.
Yeah.
Maybe it is five. Very generous. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good word. So maybe 1% or 2%. This 98%, he's not making anything for you. Still, you are inspired with him.
Because everyone wants to,
Irony.
yeah, everyone wants to be him, and they're looking up to him as a hero. Yeah. If you're like
Yeah,
an 18-year-old kid, 90%
yeah.
will be male, and you're like working in technology yourself, then you see him as a hero. But I want to challenge that image and ask these people that are maybe now watching this, who are 18, 90-year old, and are looking at him as a hero, like, please, he's a dumbass. Don't follow him.
And he was already rich. He
Yeah,
was already from the rich family,
exactly.
influential background of his parents, mother, both in politics and business. Are you from that background? So do not, just challenge your intellect or intelligence. It's all about lot of other factors.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yes, I'm not denying the fact he did lot of good things, not good things, sorry. He did lot of
Successful
successful
things.
adventure.
Exactly.
Successful, not good.
But it's very
That's a
interesting.
nice discussion where we are doing. Because I think it will open up the new perspective of new way of looking, and maybe lot of generation. I don't know. It's our view. Maybe I would be wrong, or maybe I don't know you. But it's our opinion what we are thinking. Nobody knows the right thing actually.
But
But at least,
I
yeah,
have
go ahead.
like the last angle to talk about like Tesla. It shows a lot about what he wanted with it, because Tesla used to start as a company to try to electrify existing cars. I remember my dad around like 2008, 2009. That's why I first heard about Tesla. He had an old car and he looked into buying this kit that Tesla was selling that allowed him to himself electrify his own car. Then you would have to take out your own engine and you would put on these parts from Tesla. And then your
Hmm.
existing chassis or chassis, I don't know how you pronounce this word in English,
Yeah, yeah,
you would keep this, but it would then be an electric car suddenly. But later, because also to earn money, because this was of course not profitable, they started selling the Roadster and then the Model S, and these are all very high-end cars. So he's selling cars for the middle and upper class. And then if you compare this with, for example, some companies from China, or also even like, I don't know, like Volkswagen in Europe,
yeah.
in Germany,
Yeah.
they are making cars for like 5,000, 10,000, maybe 20,000 euros. And a Model S, I don't know what it goes for now, but I wouldn't be surprised, like 50,000 to 100,000, something like this range. So it's a difference in making like very big, expensive cars for a very tiny part of the population, or making very accessible, very cheap, decent, small cars for the whole population. And you see where his priority is. In my opinion, I'm also against those small cars. I think we should invest in trains and buses, but
Yeah.
that's
Interesting. I think this podcast or this conversation, I would say, will help other people to have some different aspect as well. I wouldn't say that make your opinion by just looking. Just what we are saying. Just
no,
at least take it as an input
there's a lot
and
written
think
about
about the
him.
different perspective. Just, think like a different perspective, then try to make your own opinion,
Yeah, there's a lot
basically.
been written about him. There's a lot of other podcasts that already basically made this story that I just painted already. So
Yeah, actually the large population, like the whole world population, 10 billion. I don't know how many.
8 billion.
The 8 billion, but like 6 7 billions. I don't know, 5 billions people don't know about him this much. I think in the western side, maybe 1 billion. 1 billion, 1 billion is all itself. Quite a large amount. I would say critical opinion which you are giving about him. Very few people are there,
Yeah.
and very. I would say 98% or maybe 99% people have positive opinion only. Or maybe fraction of people have this kind of critical opinion.
Well, I think in the last few years that image now is changing because, and that's maybe like the final part of his story so far, is of course his recent turn to politics. So he indeed he has a different view than I have, like, and but he is at least trying to to influence it. But yeah, in my opinion, in a very bad way, because he used to be very like centrist, very supporting mainstream. Like he supported Obama and he supported Hillary Clinton in 2016. He supported Joe Biden, I think, still in 2020. So he
Mhm.
was like very mainstream. Yeah, like not taking risks in that sense. Like very the easy route of politics in that sense. Like what was very acceptable already by the rest of society. And basically around 2022, this started to change. There's been like different theories why he changed his politics. COVID might been a big one, but the honest answer is we don't know. But he did
Mhm.
change a lot. So he went very right wing, very fast. And so from supporting Obama, Clinton, Biden, he went to support Trump last year. He spent
Mhm.
a quarter of a billion, so 250 million of his own money on the re-election campaign of Trump. And now, yeah, Trump got elected, and Elon is now the head of this government efficiency agency, which is trying to cut off like a lot of like what they say the inefficient spending. I think again this story will show, and there's already been some early signals for this, is that
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't know what he's doing. Because, for example, they claimed that already 50 billion of spending had been saved by this agency in the first month. And if you look at that number and if you actually try to investigate, okay, where were these savings being made, then it all falls flat. Like nothing is earmarked, there's no proof for it. And some things, they might be savings on the short term, but on the long term, like for example, like savings on environmental spending or like foreign aid, stuff like that. On the long term, that will come back to bite them, and it will cost more in the end. So it's also very short-sighted.
This part we have not covered. This Dodge and all, Elon and Trump, and what they are trying to accomplish, and whether it is good for the world and good for
Yeah, I
America.
think that's a
So
separate
that is something.
discussion.
That's a separate discussion. I mean, we will cover this in our next podcast somewhere. But I think, I mean, the objective of our today's podcast, I think, is completed, because what I really wanted with this podcast, actually, from personally, why you many times I found you that you say that I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk.
Hmm.
So at least, I mean, now I got your those things why you have made this kind of your mind uh,
Did I convince you?
for him. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say convinced, but at least there is also, I would say, another contrast image as well, that what is happening. I mean, if you go from the background or deep background or late background, now I will be more cautious. I wouldn't say that I hate him or I love him, whether I do not get inspired with him, whether I get inspired him. I wouldn't comment on this.
Hmm.
But at least, I mean, you gave me something substantial today. Rethink to make my opinion again, if I do have.
Oh,
And I
that's good.
think a lot of other younger people may also have this kind of takeaway from this podcast, that okay, let's rethink at least. I think, I mean, that would be itself sufficient, I think.
Definitely.
And
What I definitely want to give away to as like a final note to end on is like try to think critically yourself, and train your critical thinking skills, and don't just trust the words that some like salesman is doing, and also don't trust me for it. Like the things that I said in this episode, like look them up yourself, please do,
yeah.
and read more into it, listen more about it, then make up your own opinion.
Thank you, Gilder. I mean, I really enjoyed this discussion today. So from here, we will wrap up, and yeah, guys, I mean, enjoy this content, and we will see you in the next podcast with Gilder, or maybe when we will release this podcast, you can give in the comments your suggestion around which topic you want Gilder to speak. Maybe Gilder would be happy to speak about that.
Thank you. I'm very curious about the comments on this one actually as well, to see if I convince some other people as well, or not,
Yeah.
or maybe I'll hear some good counter arguments.
Sure. Okay, guys, bye bye, Tara. See you in the next episode.
Bye bye.